It's time for Reason.
But what else can we do? You and I, the parents. I don't have a kid in school yet. She's 3. She will be going to school very, very soon. Am I going to have to be worried about taking her to school every single day? Am I going to have to be worried about someone wanting to harm her at an elementary school? And as we talk about legislation, as we talk about gun safety programs, as we talk about these things that the government can do to some degree, at the end of the day, it's you and I.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live here in the middle of the nation, right here on the Big Talker KQAM, along with KGPT-TV, channel 2610. Broadcasting across the entire Mid-America network. Welcome aboard. Happy Wednesday morning. It is the day to fight for liberty, the day to fight for just having a good day, the day to fight for conservatism, constitutionalism, your ability to go to work, have a great day, be able to be productive, and hopefully not have the government intrude on everything that you do. Welcome into it. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. This is the Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier, and it's a great morning to have you along with us as we get started on a brand new day. So much to talk about, so much to get to, and it seems like we never have enough time to do everything that we want to. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to play an interview that we had yesterday with a guy by the name of David Bozell. He is the president of For America, a think tank in Washington, D.C., talking about the latest immigration debate. It was a great discussion we had yesterday, and it actually caused some people to disagree even with him on what's happening in D.C. with the negotiations and debate on immigration. So we'll play that interview at the bottom of the hour, but if you do want to jump in, you are more than welcome to do so. We are broadcasting all across the radio and TV. We are broadcasting all over social media with the Facebook Live feed. You can check out facebook.com/1480KQAM. Like it and share it. I do appreciate it when you do so. We're still battling the fact that conservative media on social media is having a very difficult time actually getting blasted out to new individuals. It tries to lock it in, tries to isolate it so that way it doesn't get blasted out. So we need to break that, whatever the algorithm or the chains or the walls that they put up or whatever they do. Let's break it. If you can just go on there, go to the Facebook Live feed, and actually, no matter where you're listening, Garden City, it's on KIUL's Facebook page. If you're down in KGYN in the Oklahoma Panhandle, we're on that Facebook page for 1210 KGYN. Go there, like it, share it onto your own wall. Let's blast this out everywhere. We are the fastest growing show right now, and we need to maintain that kind of status. We're talking about things no one else is talking about in the entire Mid-America region. And we got some really great stuff for you today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I thought I'd bring this up today. I've been wanting to talk about it for a while, and today's kind of the perfect opportunity to do so, and especially in the first hour, with many of the individuals getting up and starting your morning, but also getting ready for for your day on the farm. If you're in the egg community all across the Mid-America region, in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, it doesn't matter. Where you're at, it's important to you. And we need to remember, no matter what you're starting off your day with, whether you're out and you're working in the fields today, whether you're getting up and getting ready to put on your suit and tie and you go to your office job, whatever you're doing, have you ever had the boss that is that micromanager? Have you ever had that micromanagement job to where they want you to do additional things to appease them, but it doesn't really help or benefit you in any way, shape, or form with your job? You ever have that before? You have maybe that sales position where at the end of the day, your sales boss, the sales manager, whoever, says, you know what? I want you to come back a little bit early, or I want you to stay a little bit later, and I want you to compile an entire list of every single individual that you called on today. You ever had one of those? I had one of those before. You ever have that job to where no matter what you do, maybe you're sitting in your cubicle, and they sit there and they look over your shoulder, and they say, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, you should do it this way. Maybe you should type a little bit faster. Maybe you should organize it like this. Maybe you should do it like this. I want to see you do it like this. And they look over your shoulder the entire time. It's a waste sometimes. Now, if you're bad at your job, then I guess it's somewhat validated. But if you're good at your job, or at least you've done it for a long time, and that's how you do it, and you've been somewhat proficient with it, you do it all the time. But it doesn't necessarily improve the situation. It's just kind of the mundane thing that the boss sometimes likes to do. That micromanagement position. I've been there before. I've seen it. Drives you nuts. I'm kind of an independent kind of guy. We need to remember that when the President of the United States proposes a budget to Congress, that's exactly what that is. Congress micromanaging the President of the United States, asking them or telling them what they want. He proposes a budget, and they say, yeah, thanks, okay, that was just busy work. Now we're going to create our own budget because we don't like what you did. Name one time where the president's budget that was proposed to Congress was the exact same budget that came out of Congress back to the president to sign to be able to implement for the next few years, or the next year, or the next continuing resolution, or however long they end up doing it, because we really haven't passed a budget in a really long time. But name the last time that we actually used the president's budget and used anything in it in order to promote a final budget at the end of the year. It's never happened. Ever. Never. And I know with farmers, especially in the agricultural community, there's been discussion about the ag bill and crop insurance. And it gets, for whatever reason, it gets brought up every single year. Now, look, I am a fan of crop insurance. I am a fan of farm subsidies because I understand the need for them. I understand the need that farmers cannot plant every single year into the ground or else the soil loses the nutritional value. I get that. And I am one of those to where I don't like government spending. I don't like government subsidies. I don't like government regulations, but I do see the need that if we're going to help anybody, we should help the ones that actually feed us every single year, because pretty soon we're going to get to another Dust Bowl situation. We're going to get to where the soil has no nutritional value to grow anything, and then we're going to be up a you-know-what kind of creek, and then we don't have any food. And then guess what? Then the government really gets to regulate us, because they're going to start regulating who gets food. They're going to start rationing food. They're going to start holding on to food. And then we're going to see a whole nother issue. And I don't want to see that. So I am a proponent of the farm subsidies. I am a proponent of the egg industry and the government helping out with that industry above any other type of industry. But every single year, it seems like when we start talking about cuts in the federal budget, which we do need to do, that they always start talking about cutting crop insurance and start talking about cutting the farm subsidies. And it's interesting because President Donald Trump said that he would not do so, and then his proposal had some cuts in there. And the egg industry panicked. They freaked out. They lost their minds. And we saw the Kansas Farm Bureau come out and say, hey, you know what? I mean, they said it right. Ryan Flickner of the Kansas Farm Bureau came out and said, yeah, you know what? It doesn't matter. They try and do this every single year, but by the final bill, it will never be like that. They will never cut farm subsidies. They will never cut crop insurance because we need that, and that will never be in the final bill. We need to remember, whether we're a Trump supporter or a non-Trump supporter, that no matter what he proposes, it is irrelevant. It does not matter. That's what the president's proposal does. He asks for some kind of cuts across the board, and if you remember, it was only like 0.6% of the entire federal budget, and some of that coming from the farm bill, some of that coming from crop insurance, some of that coming from the egg industry. But they're not going to get any cuts. Even the 0.6%, they panicked. They freaked. What will we ever do with a 0.6% budget reduction? It's just not going to happen. And Kansas Senator Pat Roberts said President Trump made the commitment to him in the Oval Office just last year not to cut crop insurance, for a key program for the farmers. However, Trump's budget proposal cut the programs anyways. It's a proposal, and as we mentioned in the micromanagement situation, it's irrelevant. It means absolutely nothing. Under Trump's budget, the average minimum subsidy for crop insurance would fall from 62% to 48%. The changes would save more than $2 billion a year beginning in 2020, according to the White House. About $74 million in losses were paid just to Kansas farmers in 2016, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Overall, Trump's budget slashes the budget for the U.S. Department of Agriculture by $3.7 billion, a 16% decrease. Well, that's not going to happen either. Donald Trump said that he is an advocate for farmers. Donald Trump said that he is a proponent and a defender of the egg industry. He elected Sonny Perdue to be the head of the Department of Agriculture, who I believe is a wonderful individual and is going to do a great job promoting agriculture. I really think he's going to do great. He's already been able to repeal some of the water regulations. He's already been able to talk about getting the government out of the way for the farmers. That's what we need to see. Ryan Flickner with the Kansas Farm Bureau said, quote, presidents propose budget every year. This proposed budget from President Trump is no different than any other former president, Bush or Obama. Cut crop insurance, and it's dead on arrival. Let them try. The purpose of this is that we need to be aware of what they're trying to do as opposed to what actually is getting done. They ask for more. It's called the negotiation process, and that's something that we've forgotten in the recent years because we no longer negotiate. It's the fast and furious. It's the ramming thing through at the very end. It's the devastating, we better do this right now or else it's going to be the end of the world. That's the world that we live in because we don't know how to keep an attention span, honestly, with social media, with the tweets, with 160 characters, with the 8-second little word blip there to be able to try and guess exactly what everybody's going to feel from there on out, that we're so short-minded and we have such a short attention span that we don't know how to have a negotiation go on for months at a time. We want it to be almost the Fast and Furious at the end of either we get everything or we get nothing, and then one group's happy, one group's not happy, or both groups are really upset because none of them got what they wanted, and then we just go on down the road and kick the can down the road and then debate it again a few months later. That's been the world of politics over the last few years. That can't be what we do now. Let's negotiate. President Trump proposes a massive 16% cut from the Department of Agriculture. It's not going to happen. He proposed cuts in crop insurance. It's not going to happen. By the end of the bill, they won't cut anything, and if they do, it'll be maybe 2%. And then we can look at it rationally. Got some phone calls coming up here. Stay tuned. This is The Voice of Reason. Happy Wednesday morning.
To The Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
To seeing you there.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Good Wednesday morning to you. Broadcasting all across the Mid-America region right here. Appreciate you hanging out with us. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. The phones are lighting up when it comes to the ag bill and the cuts in crop subsidies, the crop insurance and the farm subsidies, and the potential for us to cut the federal budget. Now, look, as you know, I am all about cutting the federal budget. We need to slash, we need to cut, we need to freeze, we need to get rid of, we need to consolidate, we need to do whatever we can to get ourselves back on track. And one thing I think that we're missing the entire point here is the fact that we have the SNAP program, the food stamp program, involved in the ag bill. To me, that makes no sense. I don't understand. Just because it has food involved in it, I don't know why it has to be through the ag bill. The ag bill needs to be primarily for the agriculture industry, the farmers, the growers, the transporters, that stuff. That's it. The engineers of them. The seed growers, the seed experimenters, whatever you want to call them, the individuals that actually do productive things with the agriculture industry, not the SNAP program and welfare programs. That does not be involved. If we want to cut in the ag industry, that's where we need to cut. I'm not concerned about the farm subsidies. I'm not concerned about the crop insurance. That's very, very, very small when it comes to the budget compared to other things. Maybe we can make it a little more efficient, sure. But that's not the priority that we need to have. Let's go to the phones because they're lighting up here. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Good morning. Oh, I guess we lost one. Let's go back to the phone here, shall we? Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name? Hello. Hello. Going once, going twice. Give me a call back. 316-721-8255. I do want to hear from you on this. And I'm wondering, I know that it's not necessarily a popular comment to say sometimes when you say that you support some kind of farm subsidy or crop insurance to the federal government, and I'm guaranteeing that's probably I'm gonna get a call on that, but we're missing the project here, and the fact that we're concerned more about Trump's proposal when it comes to wanting to cut some of these things as opposed to focusing on the priorities of really needing to cut the SNAP program down to a really, really small level, when we need to cut some of the social programs to a really, really small level, and then, focus on some other things that are actually going to do more of an impact on the budget than some of the pennies and the change on the back end, which is important. Don't get me wrong. It is important, but it's not the meat and potatoes what we need to be focused on here. Let's go back to the phone, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
My name's Ann. Good morning.
Good morning, Ann. How are you today?
Well, thank you.
Good.
What people don't realize, that farmers gamble every day without stepping into a casino.
Sure.
Their first boss is the weather. Their
Mhm.
second boss is the bank, most of the time. And I just spoke to a farmer in the area I grew up in, and he said he's tired of working for pennies.
Sure.
And most people in the area I came from had two jobs, a job in the daytime, and then they would farm at nights on weekends, and it was not uncommon to see people in the fields
All night long.
with their lights all night long.
All night long.
And what people don't realize is a lot of these farmers don't get subsidies.
Sure.
Usually only the huge ones do. So, they're not getting much. And you've got to remember, too, their equipment is the cost of a house.
Oh, absolutely. They have just as many loans on their combine as they do, you're right, for their mortgage on their home. They never get out of debt.
$150,000 for the small equipment, $250,000 for the combines, or I don't know what they are. They're probably more than that.
Sure.
And so the small farmers are hurting. But I think people need to realize that.
I don't know how they do it. I mean, the average salary.
Oh, I don't either. I don't either.
Yeah, I feel so bad because.
Well, I do. My dad did it.
Sure.
He worked his butt off. He worked two jobs, and most of them do.
It's so sad. I mean, we see individuals that don't work, that get a food subsidy, that get the SNAP program, that get these social programs, and they coast through, and they just live their lifestyle that way. Then we have the farmers who work 18, 20 hours a day, as you said, with a side project, and then working all night in the fields. And then they used to be able to come in with a decent profit of what was the average salary about 5, 6, 10 years ago was close to maybe $150,000. Now they're doing all of this work, working 18, 16 hours a day, and getting a $4,000 return at the end of the year. Not enough to pay for their equipment, as you mentioned.
Heavens,
not
no.
enough to. I mean,
No.
and they're feeding all of us, and we just demand it, and then we talk about cutting the little things that do help them if they are able to get it.
Well, and I'm on board with you. I don't get why food stamps is in the Farm Bill, because our food stamps is huge. The cost of that is huge. I mean, it's to me the same thing as Medicaid.
Sure.
The small hospitals, the cost of them running, were in Medicaid. You got to separate that stuff.
You have to.
And the school systems do it too. So it's time that people give the farmers credit.
Right. We need to focus on the actual farmers. And that was, again, the mentality of the progressives to say, you know what, we have some hardworking farmers. Let's muddle them up and say that we're going to help them, quote unquote, while we start including nutritional food programs for the schools into an ag bill. So then when you start trying to cut it, then, you want to hurt the kids and the farmers. How terrible are you? Because you want to actually split those up and actually want to start decreasing that bill. And now they have a lock-hold, iron grip-clad control over the entire ag industry, because if we start wanting to cut any of it, then you're hurting the farmers and the children.
Well, people need to see the cost of food stamps, and that's why they don't. They don't want people to see the actual cost of food stamps. That's why they don't want to do it separate. Because people would stop it.
And I love it very much. I appreciate it. Happy, good Wednesday morning to you. I appreciate the call very, very much. Great points. We got some more calls lined up here. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We'll get to you as soon as we come back. It's sad that we abuse our farmers, one of the hardest working industries in the country, that feed us every single day, and then we want to take away a few of the pennies that they are able to get when they're struggling every day, while the rest of them, individuals not working all day long, get food stamps across the board. Kind of sad.
It's time for Reason.
We just increased education funding last year, $400 million over the next 2 years. That's not enough. They wanted $1 billion. So what do? They compensate by now coming out with a new lawsuit, or continuing the lawsuit, asking for an additional $600 million.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome into the Voice of Reason. Good Wednesday morning to you. Fighting for liberty every single day and actually understanding the issues on a common sense level to where we're not taken advantage of. We see the story, and to wrap this conversation up before we move on to something else, we see the story, everybody panicking about the fact that Trump proposed in his budget a cut in the crop insurance at the federal level, the crop insurance programs, which is not going to happen. As Ryan Flickner said with the Kansas Farm Bureau, it's not going to happen. It's proposed like that every single year, and it's going to be dead on arrival because what the president does with a proposed budget never goes through. Congress always rewrites whatever they want to create their own bill, and then they present something different. It's never going to get cut. Don't worry about it. Not to mention, it's not the meat and potatoes what we need to focus on. According to the last Farm Bill, the 2014 Farm Act, that goes through 2014 to 2018, which is why it's important now that we start working on the new one because it's running out for the four-year plan. Under the Farm Bill, 80%, 80, more than the majority of the entire Farm Bill expenditure is quote-unquote nutrition, according to the USDA.gov. Nutrition, meaning the SNAP program, meaning the food stamps, meaning the CHIP program, meaning all these nutritional programs providing food for individuals because they feel that because it's food, it's not a social program, it's food, therefore it should be involved in the Farm Bill for farmers, for the agriculture industry, instead of actually focusing primarily on what needs to be involved in the ag industry, which is agriculture. But it's not. 80% of the Farm Bill from 2014 to 18, the last Farm Bill, 80% of it was quote-unquote nutrition. Crop insurance was 8%. Conservation was 6%. Commodities, like, I don't know, one of the most important things that we can have is commodities, buying, selling, and trading all the products that we actually grow in the Mid-America region, that we sell across the state lines, that we sell overseas, that we bring in from overseas. Everything that involves actually getting the food into the local stores around the country and around the world, that's 5% of the entire Farm Bill. Commodities. 80% of it's nutrition. So while we're here groveling over the pennies, the chump change, the bone that they throw to us and say, yeah, you know what, we want to try and cut this, and everybody panics, and then they say it's dead on arrival, and then we write a bill that's actually going to increase it probably at the end of the day, we're not focused on the priorities that we have to have, and that is cutting the meat and potatoes. It's kind of like the state budget to where we don't even talk about cutting educational funding because it's going to be the end of the world if that ever happens. 53% of the state budget. Now, you know what? Don't look at that. We need to be groveling over the other stuff where the other 80 different agencies at the state level are groveling over 10% of the budget. Because we can't be talking about the meat and potatoes of this. 60% of the entire federal budget goes to social programs, much of that included in the 80% of the Farm Bill that is quote-unquote nutrition. Providing the social programs to the individuals. While we're talking about wanting to take away the little incentive of actually wanting to become a farmer and actually provide what we actually eat on a daily basis. All right, I want to shift gears here for just a little bit. David Bazell, we chatted with him yesterday. He is president of For America as we're talking about the immigration debate at the federal level, the latest of what's happening there, the discussions within Congress, and the lack of initiative the Republicans have to actually get something done. This is what we talked about yesterday with David Bazell, president of For America. We've had him on the show before. Mr. David Bazell is with us. David, good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning to you, sir.
Hey, it's great to have you on here. This immigration,
thank you.
Well, this immigration debate, I am frustrated in the sense that I don't understand why we can't just enforce the laws we have on the books. And now we're talking about this mass amnesty. They want obviously progressives want them to be able to vote, which is why they weren't happy with the House bill. But I was in favor of what the House came out with right as they passed a continuing resolution. And they said, look, you asked us for a response. We gave you a response. Here it is. It's a solid bill. It still allows them to stay in the country, which is what Democrats wanted. But for some reason, they weren't in support of it.
It's a simple problem of Republicans and leadership specifically, but a good 80% of them really not feeling comfortable being on offense. And what do I mean by that? If you rewind the clock a couple of weeks, when Schumer, kind of shut down the government, even though I don't really like putting that on him because there's only presidents shut down government. But okay. Let's put it in Schumer's hands. The press, by and large, blame Schumer. And Republicans were winning that. They kind of fell backwards into a winning political argument. Mm-hmm. We're funding the military. We're funding everything else. And what are you shutting down the government for? It was only the president, who right around on the day of the shutdown began, came out with, "I want to put Americans first." Schumer wants to put illegals first.
Sure.
And that's what the country grabbed onto. And the Republican leadership kind of fell backwards into that. The Republican leadership was crowing about funding the government. Nobody really cared. Then when you get a couple weeks beyond that, you're talking about the finding a DACA solution. You have Bob Goodlatte's bill, congressman out of Virginia. It's basically everything that the president has been talking about for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Those 4 pillars and then some. And Republican leaders, they say that they've been trying to whip that vote, trying to, gauge the temperature of the caucus for that bill. I don't necessarily believe it. These guys, the Republicans, they would have a tough time selling a bucket of water to a man on fire. Really. And so they feel uncomfortable. Their default position, if you combine the two events, the shutdown and then the omnibus bill, the cromnibus bill, whatever you want to call it, you combine the two events, their default position is just to keep government running soundly, no drama, we don't want to put the Democrats on defense. And it was the president who tried to do that over that shutdown weekend. Republicans benefited from it, but then a couple of weeks later, they don't take advantage of it.
Sure.
They don't try again. They don't put Democrats on defense again. It's just an uncomfortable spot for them.
Why do you think it's uncomfortable? I'm concerned that even if we just build the wall and we start enforcing immigration, a new administration comes in, like another Obama, where they just want to ignore things and the catch and release program, and nothing was actually solved. I would love to see that if, we give them, and especially the DACA recipients, we give them an extended period of time. If you want to stay here, then you need to apply for the naturalization process. We just had a story from Lawrence, Kansas, up north of us here near Kansas City, of a science teacher who makes large amounts of money, who's been here since a child, was a DACA recipient. He has 5 siblings. All of them have been now naturalized citizens, and he got caught on an expired work visa, because he's bounced back and forth as a 30, 40-year-old man in a family now, going back and forth from a work and a student visa, and it expired, and he got caught. And now the big story is, oh my gosh, why would we deport him? It's a terrible thing. We're tearing him from his family, yada, yada, yada. If they start the naturalization process, all the power to you. You can stay here during that process. But we're not going to go door-to-door knocking and seeing if you're there. But if we catch you, if you're speeding, if we pull you over, if we find you and you're here illegally, then yeah, we need to do some type of severe punishment that may include deportation. We need to look at having some tough immigration laws, and no one wants to have that conversation.
You got a lot of folks who don't want to be citizens, right?
Right.
People within the DACA community, whether it's 800,000 or 1.6 million, doesn't matter to me. You got a lot of folks who because they would have to give up their citizenship from their host country, and they don't really want to be citizens. They don't really want to be on a pathway.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bigger problem that I think the press and the politicians, well, I think they understand it, but I think it's a bigger problem than people realize. What do you do if you provide a pathway for folks who don't want to be on it? We're just going to keep, we're like dogs chasing our own tails. But you're right about what you said at the top of that, where a new administration could come in and kind of reverse a lot of the things that the president has done.
And that's a scary thought.
I would give President Trump a real strong A- for what he can control coming out of the Oval Office.
Sure. Vis-a-vis
executive orders. He's turned out to be the most socially conservative politician in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to pro-life legislation and those types of things, regulation. And reinstating the Mexico City policy, and a couple of other things. He's been extraordinarily strong with the executive orders. Problem again comes back to Congress. These guys need to codify the president's efforts into law.
Sure.
And we're just going to we're running the risk of just reversing all this in hopefully not 2 years, but 4 years from now, 6 years from now. where all these good things that President Trump's doing is just going to get reversed.
Well, and it may hurt us even sooner than that. I mean, do you think that the lack of response that the Republicans have seen as a majority right now, is it going to hurt them in the primaries this year? I mean, as you mentioned, they're getting a lot of money campaigning, saying we're either going to enforce, the Democrats saying we're going to fight Trump on this. But right now, will the Republicans be hurt in the midterms this fall unless they act on it relatively soon?
I think it's a 50-50 proposition that they lose. I am no fan of this Congress, if you can sort of see that coming out of me today. If I had to give a letter grade, I'd give President Trump, B+, A-.
Sure.
And I'd give Congress an F. They've really just only squeezed tax cuts out like a pimple. And that's all they've been able to accomplish with all the powers of government at their disposal. It comes down to about a dozen races across the country in the House, and it's really going to come down to do women in the suburbs want Nancy Pelosi?
Sure.
I don't really like playing the demographic game, but if I had to do it, it's going to be women in affluent suburbs deciding for the country because those are where the swing districts are. Do they want Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House or not?
There it is, David Bazell. He's president of For America, and some interesting information when it comes to the lack of leadership right now within the Republicans at the federal level and the discussion on immigration. Will we see something? Who knows? It sounds like they're going to try and push it back to this fall during the budgetary debate. I don't know if that's going to help them during the midterms or not. Let's take one more break, wrapping up hour number one. Your thoughts and calls coming up. This is The Voice of Reason.
With Andy Hoosier on the Mid-America Network.
Side.
The time of my life.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number one, broadcasting across the entire Mid-America Network. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. It's a Wednesday. It is a Fight for Liberty Wednesday because that's just the way we roll. 316-728-2555, 316-721-TALK. But you know what? You're starting off your morning. Let's go to news with Rick.
And it's time for some good news.
Okay, here we go, people.
There it is. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning.
What's happening?
Good morning, Mid-America Network. Heston Police Chief, our own Heston, just north of Newton, was among 12 law enforcement officers from across the country who were honored with a Medal of Valor yesterday. President Donald Trump recognized Chief Doug Schrader and others in a ceremony yesterday at the White House, honored for his response to the report of an active shooter at the XL Industries plant in Heston back in February of 2015. Schrader entered the lawn equipment factory alone and killed that gunman. That story, of course, making national news.
Because Kansans are just awesome.
Hard to believe that was 3 years ago already.
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
Okay, so let's talk about some poop, shall we?
Everybody poops.
Now,
I remember that book.
Your daughter, Isla. How old is Isla
She is
right now?
3.
Is she infatuated with poop? The poop
Oh, yeah.
emoji, the poop emoji is big stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so if I say, Andy, name a toy company, what toy company comes to mind?
Fisher.
Mattel, maybe?
Mattel, okay.
There's another one. Okay, well, check this out. Toy makers have gone to the toilet for their latest creations. Mattel, a company best known for its clean-cut Barbie dolls, they're set to release a game called Flushin' Frenzy. It sends a brown plastic poop flying into the air. Yeah. Rival Hasbro, whose water-squirting game Toilet Trouble was a hit last year, stuck with potty humor this year and released a new game called Don't Step in It. A game where players are blindfolded and have to avoid stepping in poop that's molded out of a clay-like substance. Now, toy analysts and experts say that the potty-related toys are hitting stores now because of the popularity of the poop emoji.
Wow.
So that's also
That's what we've come to today.
And that's also, according to this story, made it more acceptable for parents to buy poop toys for their kids. Now, at the New York Toy Fair this past weekend, toy makers showed off poo-shaped action figures as well as squishy toys and other creatures from the toilet.
That's where we've come to in
Yes.
society today. Eating Tide Pods and playing with poop.
Now, do you realize there are people called toy analysts? And one
Yes.
analyst named Julie Lennett, she says that poop is a theme. She says kids think it's funny. And you know what? As a kid, poop is funny.
Well, you know what?
The poop emoji is kind of cool.
The poop emoji is kind of fun.
The poop emoji has a great expression, kind of like a, hey, I'm a poop.
Well, but are the parents okay with this? Because I'm pretty sure the parents are kind of tired of poop. Let me tell you, every weekend when I think I get to sleep in a little bit and not wake up at 4 a.m., by 5:36, we hear the little girl yell, "I'm done!"
And we know what she's done with.
Because now she's ready to be wiped and be done. So that's what we get waken up to every weekend. I'm done!
We're going to have to rename this the TMI segment.
The TMI, yeah.
But you just have to teach her step 2.
Well, exactly, but she is very fascinated with poop, so this will go very, very well with young kids because we get to play with poop!
So,
but will this lead to the idea that we should start playing with it after we're done with it?
I hope not go there now.
But the kids are going to take it to that level. You know they are. We're going to see the next stories.
You play with the emoji.
You know the kids are going to take it to that level.
I've even seen the stuffed pillow, the pillows. The
poop
emoji
the poop
pillows.
Pillow.
There's
I
poop
want to cuddle with my poop.
Pajamas.
I have not seen the pajamas.
Who came up with the poop emoji? Who thinks of these things?
Well, I'm sure that people were like, "Oh, I feel like poop," and I've seen that emoji before. How do you feel today, honey? Oh, I feel like ugh.
Hey, and just for the record, I believe I have gone a full 48 hours without hearing anything about Tide Pods.
Ooh, see, there's an
That's
exciting
a good
piece there.
thing.
That is a very good thing. Fun times. Rick with the news. Appreciate it.
And that's the news.
There it is. Now we know about the poop toys. Get ready. That's going to be the new fad trending for Christmas Christmas gifts the end of this year. Can you wait for it? I know I'm excited about it. My 3-year-old daughter will absolutely be fascinated with that. When we come back in hour number 2, we're going to shift gears just for a little bit. As yesterday, we actually talked about an interesting story when it came to the electric utility companies coming after homes and families with solar panels, making them that pay their fair share. We'll talk about that in hour number 2. A heck of a lot more coming up as well. Your thoughts and calls, we'd love to hear from you. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
But what else can we do? You and I, the parents. I don't have a kid in school yet. She's 3. She will be going to school very, very soon. Am I going to have to be worried about taking her to school every single day? Am I going to have to be worried about someone wanting to harm her at an elementary school? And as we talk about legislation, as we talk about gun safety programs, as we talk about these things that the government can do to some degree, at the end of the day, it's you and I.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 2 of the Voice of Reason, right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, along with KGPT TV. Welcome aboard. Good morning to you, no matter where you may be listening. We appreciate you very much. Good Wednesday. It is a Fight for Liberty Wednesday. That's going to be the hashtag for the day today, as you, the voter, you, the constituent, you, the individual, just wanting to go to work and stay out of the political realm, no matter who you may be, what you may be doing. Welcome aboard. Good morning to you. Let's start off the day the best way that we know how. What do you say? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Coming up in hour number 3. Kind of an interesting guest today. I am excited about this guest. He was an individual who was bullied as a child, who grew up to become a boxer, and has now become a bodyguard, or was a bodyguard, for Donald Trump. And he's written a book called The Small Town Boxer, his own memoir on the life of someone who has overcome bullying and overcome being the puny individual, then growing up to become a successful boxer, standing up for himself, then becoming even the bodyguard of Donald Trump. His name is Mike Suski, and I'm excited to have him on in the 8 o'clock hour. Should be kind of a fun conversation there. 316-721-8255. We're all over social media. We're all over Facebook Live. If you go on, if you want to like it, if you want to share it, then you're more than welcome to do so. I'd love to hear from you on whatever is on your mind today. Before we get into the topic, I do want to give you an update. I did shut down the polling and the voting for the first governor's debate, the Republican governor's debate. After the debate, if the vote was held today, who would you support? And kind of some interesting results on this one. And coming out on top, Secretary of State Chris Kobach comes out on top at 32%. Governor Jeff Collier comes out at 19%. Then we have a two-way tie for third with Mark Hutton and Jim Barnett at 12%. Wink Hartman coming in after that at 10%. Other, meaning that they want somebody other than these, at 10%, and Ken Seltzer at 5%. I'm kind of fascinated by this. Now, we had a good amount of outcome and good amount of turnout when it came to people polling on this. And I appreciate everybody that did. We'll do another poll on something else fun and quirky here sometime soon, so that way you can get your vote in, because I love being able to do polls just to get your take on what we're talking about, what we're doing, some of the big information and big issues of the day. So I appreciate everybody that did do so. We'll do another one here relatively soon, but very interesting results when it came to this one. We'll hang on to it, and then we'll compare it when we do one a little bit closer to the primary. Talking about elections and talking about polling and the votes of new turning out, a good amount of individuals turned out for the vote yesterday for the Derby school bond, and some very interesting results on this one as well. I'm kind of baffled and I don't quite understand it. So maybe if someone did go and vote yesterday, you can call in and give me a little explanation on how you voted and why you voted as proposition number 1. The meat and potatoes proposition, the one with $114 million in the bond, the biggest one that was on the ballot yesterday, ended up passing 46 to 53%, with about 1,400 votes for the no, 1,600 votes for the yay, and being able to pass that one. Meaning that your mill levy rates will go up, your property tax will go up, and you will be spending more money. Now, that's your prerogative. You ended up voting for it, so I guess that you're okay. For the most part, for most individuals who did show up to the polling, you're okay with seeing that happen. The mill levy rate will be increased at 9.2. Yearly tax increase per $100,000 of your home, it will be $105 a year. $105 a year for every $100,000 that you have in your home. That money you will never see again. I'm being serious. Every time the bond it'll expire, then we'll need another elementary school. We'll need some new improvements. We'll need to do some base work, whatever the heck that means, because the base work apparently is done by now property taxes as opposed to the everyday money that they get in every single year from the state of Kansas. That doesn't matter. If that's the way we said it. Now, the Proposition 2 and 3 did not go through, and those were the very, very small ones. Proposition 2 was only $5.5 million, and Proposition 3 was $4 million. So total of $9 million that didn't go through, while we supported a bond increase of $114 million. I mean, if you're going to do it, then do it. And that's where my confusion comes, is if you're going to increase your mill levy rate, if you're going to increase your property taxes, then just do it. And if you're going to do it for the largest portion of it and not for the small little chump change portion of it, then I don't know. I don't get it. Maybe it was just the actual what was included in those different propositions. Proposition number 1 was the $114 million that includes a new elementary school, that includes work on the elementary school, work on the middle school, work on the high school, work on the non-student facility work, along with athletic work. More the maintenance athletic work, not necessarily building new venues. Proposition 2, however, was where they were going to build the Panther Activity Center. That was the $5.5 million. That one did not go through. And I guess that's good news. Question number 3 in Proposition 3 was the turf soccer field, the turf baseball field, along with field lights and construction of a turf softball field. So that one was all athletic, and I am very glad that did not go through. That is not necessarily what we need to be spending our money on right now in athletics when we don't have proper graduation rates the way we need them to be. So Proposition number 2 and number 3 did not pass. Those, by the way, failed at relatively the same rate, 53 to 46% and 56 to 44% on Prop 3. But if you're going to do it, then do it. If you're not going to do it, then don't do it. I'm kind of an all-in or all-out kind of guy, and if you're going to increase your property tax rate for a $114 million bond, then what's another $9 million to it? I mean, I guess it really came down to what the priorities were and what you wanted to see built and what you didn't want to see built. And I would have voted no across the board for all three of those if I was in that area. I'm not in that area, but I found it very intriguing the fact that we did pass Prop number 1 at $114 million for that bond increase, $105 increase on your yearly property tax for every $100,000 in your home. And then we voted down Proposition number 2 and number 3. I want to get your thoughts on this and see what you think about the passing of the school bond. And again, after seeing last November, just a few months ago, with 1 out of 9 different bond issues on the ballot across the state of Kansas, only one of them passing, now this one being able to be passed, I think it really just came down to turnout. It was a bad day with weather. It was a bad day with the roads. The school was actually closed that day. They're not closed today, but they were closed yesterday. People had a hard time getting into work. People had a hard time driving on the roads, and they just maybe didn't show up. And I guess, roughly about 3,000 people voting, I guess for an off election is okay. I don't know compared to what the history looked like on actual turnout for these types of issues, but more people turned out to want to see that go through as opposed to the alternative. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Hey, good morning, Jim. How are you?
Real good. Hey, Andy, I just have a question. I wonder how the vote would come out if only property tax payers got to vote. You know?
That's a good question.
They're the ones that's going to pay for this, not people that don't pay property tax.
That is very true. That's very true. And some individuals may say, you know what, you own property, so therefore you can afford it. And some individuals that actually own property are be like, wait a second, I don't want my property to go up. Or maybe the campaign actually worked of just saying that it's going to go up the price of a pizza every month, and you can afford a pizza, right? You can afford, if you're going to do that, then you can do that for the children. So therefore that price of the pizza is going to be okay. And they did a very good job campaigning on that mentality. I
really enjoy your show, Andy. Thank you a lot.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it very much. You're right. That could be it. It could be some non-property owners voting as opposed to property owners. If you are a property owner and you supported the Derby bond increase, then I do want to hear from you and see the reasoning for it. Now, this does include the building of the elementary school. This does include the FEMA, as far as I'm aware, the FEMA standard shelters for the bad weather. Because they're going to live in it for 3 days in a row. I don't know. But that is included in this Proposition number 1, as far as I'm aware. So we are building the elementary school, and we are doing the safety procedures, quote unquote, when it comes to the school for tornado warnings or whatever may happen with severe weather or bad situations in that sense. But not to do it for the other two while doing it for this one with the small ones. I would have been more apt to voting in the 2 small ones as opposed to the big one. But on the other hand, I would have voted for no all 3 of them because I especially don't think we need turf, baseball field, softball field, soccer field, everything of the sort, building a brand new one and then doing the additional buildings. I don't know. It's up to the voters, and they obviously supported it, so we'll roll with it and see where it comes out. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. It's Ron.
Ron, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Andy.
Good.
As a non-citizen of inside Derby School District, I take exception because I have taxation without representation. I'd like to know how much money was paid for by the state on that bond. And I imagine it's quite a few million. And I'm getting tired of being taxed, taking my tax money when I don't have a say-so.
Well, it's a great question. Now, this one, as far as I'm aware, you have to be within the school district to see this property tax increase, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Well, the thing of it is, though, my taxes are taken out, and the state has my taxpayer at the state level that goes up to the state is also part of this equation.
It goes part of it. No, you're absolutely right. And that's the concern that I had with it in the first place. Why are we creating a local bond to pay for the daily things that they need, the base construction, the base maintenance, just the bare minimum things that they have to do? they're sitting on $14 million plus in their reserves for operational cash reserves for the school district of Derby. They get more money every single year from the state government and from your taxpayers, as we had mentioned, from your tax money, your property tax, your sales tax, your income tax, whatever they end up taking and applying towards this. They take that, they give it to the school district, and they say that's great, that's not enough. Now we need to do a local bond issue, which I get it, and Christy Williams mentioned that in her editorial piece just last week or a couple weeks ago, talking about that they had that opportunity. They do, and the people have spoken, but are they going to say, you know what, we're going to start being a little more independent, localized here, so that way we can utilize our own people within our own school district, and we can start becoming a little more independent there. We don't necessarily need the money coming from the state as much, and we can start backing off on that. If they would do that, then I would respect this a heck of a lot more, because I would rather pay, like you had mentioned, I would rather pay for the local school district, primarily just for our little district to be able to fund it ourselves, as opposed to doing that and then paying more and more at the state level for them to get it on both ends. We need to decide which direction we want to go here as a school district, and right now they're enjoying just getting the benefits of both.
Yeah, like I said, I think that there'd be more responsibility and accountability down there to that school board with the citizens that's actually inside the school district itself.
Sure. It's very interesting. Ron, I appreciate the call very much. You're right. I have a hard time paying at the state level and having us have this discussion that we've gone over and over about the state funds for education and saying that we always need to do more. And then they turn around and say we're not getting enough. We need to do it at a local level here. We need to decide which direction we want to go. It's kind of like the revenue income for the state, whether we're going to have the majority of the tax receipts coming in at the income tax level or the sales tax level. Which one we want to do? Are we going to try and start weeding off the income tax and go to a fair tax and go strictly sales? Or are we going to go towards the income tax and start lowering the sales tax rates? We have to look at one of these. The school district cannot do both. Or maybe they can do a little bit of both, but we have to have the meat and potatoes from one or the other. Now, this one, it is $60 million for the building of the new elementary school. $6 million for the middle school, $18 million for work on the high school, $17 million on the non-student facility work, whatever that means, the administration buildings, and then $11 million, 10.8, when it comes to athletic work, which means they're still going to be working on the athletic side to some degree, but it's not going to be like the Proposition 3 that failed when it comes to building the AstroTurf baseball field and the softball field and the soccer field and yada, 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 yada. So it's very intriguing how they ended up passing one, not passing the others. I do want to hear from you on that. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. 20 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Of Reason, kicking off a brand new Wednesday. Great to have you along today. Fighting for liberty across the board, broadcasting live here on the Big Talker KQAM in the South Central Kansas region, getting you pumped up for a day. I'm not saying that what schools want to do are bad things. In many cases, many of them are, and I'm very intrigued by one of them. We're going to get them on to actually talk a little bit about this and actually hopefully get the teacher on. A physics and chemistry teacher, Stan Burkamp from Maize, is fundraising a private fundraising in order to build solar panels for the school. That's a fantastic idea. And this isn't even originating from the government. This isn't originating from we're going to be paid for by your taxpayer money. This is one that says, hey, you know what? We're going to do this privately. We're going to get these solar panels on. We're going to cut the cost of the utilities for the school. It's going to be really cool. He wants to do it for saving the earth. I see it for saving actual resources or cutting costs. Because guess what? The school's not going to be after paying as much for utilities, which means they can either apply the money to the classroom or they can actually say, yeah, you know what? Let's back off on some of the funding from the state. This is great news. It's going to cost a total of about $385,000, and they can start the project once they raise about $100,000, which they anticipate to do by the end of this summer. This just came out a couple of days ago, and I find it especially intriguing at the exact same time where we heard the story about how now the Kansas Corporation Commission and the utility companies are wanting to raise the rates of the little bit of electricity that solar panel businesses and private homes want to use or have to use, that whatever supplements that the solar panels don't actually take care of. They want to raise the rates of those individuals so they can pay for their fair share. And it boggles the mind. Now look, you had those individuals in your family that make you feel guilty. Maybe your mother-in-law or your mother, and I'm not saying mine don't in any way. Actually, I'm very blessed with mine. But you know those families. You have individuals that's the New York family style. It's, oh, you don't want to take care of me. Oh, you don't want to be with me. No, and you know the guilt trips that you get. Or maybe the wife or the husband that give each other a guilt trip. You get the wife that says, oh, if you really love me, or the husband that says, oh, I need this really pretty please with the cherry on top, and I'll give you a massage that won't lead to something after the massage, because that'll be a first for any guy, right? You get those guilt trips. The environmentalists have been giving us a guilt trip for a long, long time to build alternative energy options. Wind energy, solar energy, not nuclear energy, because apparently that's really, really bad and that's going to destroy us all and kill us. But they want the alternative energies to get away from coal, to get away from gas, to get away from oil, to get away from these terrible things that are ruining the earth, right? We're told this every single day by the environmentalists. Now we're seeing them say, all right, you know what? We've guilted you into getting the alternative energy. We're seeing homes that want to live off the grid, so they get the solar panels. They want to reduce their utility, so they end up buying it because they have the opportunity to do so. They want to do it because they want to save the earth, whatever reasoning for it is. Governor Sam Brownback, former Governor Sam Brownback, has done a fantastic job bringing wind energy to the state, which is now close to 40% of our energy in the states. He's done a very, very good job of this. We've been guilted into alternative energy, which, again, I'm not against alternative energy in any way, shape, or form. I like it. I want it to be efficient. I don't think the government should be subsidizing it. I don't think they should be ramming it down our throat, but I love the idea of alternative energies. But now that they've guilted us into that, now they're going to turn around and guilt us into saying, you could afford your own personal solar panels, you could afford your own windmills, you could afford your own alternative energy, so you're not living off the grid, not using the resources as much because you want to be environmentally sound. Oh, the little bit that you do use, though, we need to raise your rate so that way you can start lowering the cost for everybody else. You need to pay a higher rate for the little bit of electricity that you are using on the grid, because we have to distribute your wealth, and we have to punish you for that. Now we're seeing a physics and a chemistry teacher at Maize High School wanting to do a private project building solar panels on the school to help reduce the cost of utilities for the school and be environmentally sound. And then we're going to see the Kansas Corporation Commission come out and say, yeah, you know what, that's great, school, but now you're going to be paying a higher utility rate. Can you ever win? And the left-wing hacks that are trying to guilt us into doing something and guilt us into saying that you're now the rich and elite in the establishment, and now you have to pay a higher rate because you need to pay your fair share. Where does it end? The phone's lighting up. We'll get to you as soon as we come back. Got to take a bottom of the hour break. Kind of an interesting concept, isn't it? It's a great idea that Maize High School is doing this. We'll talk to them and get some more details on it. But now, is it really going to matter because they're going to be paying a higher rate?
Wichita's fastest growing radio show. You're listening to the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Yeah, welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Great to have you along today. It's a Wednesday, 35 minutes past the hours. You're heading off to work. Good morning to you. And let's start you off the right way. Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, no matter what you're doing this morning. Let's get you pumped up to Carpe Diem all over this daggone place this morning. What do you say? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. By the way, the Kansas scorecard when it comes to solar energy, according to SolarPowerRocks.com, Kansas is graded overall as a D when it comes to solar power. From the carve-outs and subsidies or the write-offs on the taxes that you actually get from electric costs to the net metering, interconnections, tax credits, rebates, performance payments, sales tax exemptions, and the payback time if you do install solar panels on your personal homes currently sits at 15 years for that payback. And now the fact that the Kansas Corporation Commission is going to come back and say, hey, you know what? We're going to start taxing you at a higher rate for your utilities for the little bit that you do use because you need to pay your fair share is just a little bit bogus. And for the same ones that are advocating for us to say, hey, let's get off the grid, let's start working on alternative energies, let's start doing that, then they turn around and say, yeah, that's great, but the little bit that you are going to use, you're going to pay a heck of a lot higher rate than anybody else just because we have the opportunity to raise your rates and do that because you are the rich and elite and you need to pay your fair share. I find just a little bit bogus. I want to get your thoughts on this. 721-8255-721 Talk. Phones lighten up. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Good morning, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing fine. You know, I heard this story yesterday, and I was going to call you about it, and I turned on the radio, and I woke up a bit ago, and here you are, great minds, doing the same thing, except you have it a little bit wrong.
Okay.
The Corporation Commission is not proposing this. Westar Energy, some accountant or bookkeeper someplace, has requested a rate increase, and they have to get permission from the Kansas Corporation Commission.
Oh, right. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, right. Westar came up with this, and it says the new ruling by the Kansas Corporation Commission give electric utilities the opportunity to charge people with solar panels at a higher rate. So you're right. It comes from the companies themselves.
It's not approved yet.
Right.
So I think this principle should be expanded, though. Like if you go to the hospital and the doctor saves your life, I think you should have to pay for a funeral because you should have died. I think perhaps maybe if a person goes to school, say they go to college and they spend for 3, 4, 5 years in college, and they almost graduate, but they aren't quite able to do it. Maybe it's got something to do with illness or something. But I think that everybody should have to pay more if you don't use
all the courses that you have. I mean, it's a great analogy. I appreciate that very much, Jim, because it's a great analogy to say, hey, you know what? You're doing what's best for you as an individual, whether it's because you want to save the earth, whether it's because you want to actually cut your costs on the utilities, whether it's because you want it to pay yourself back in a 15, 20-year period or a 10-year period if it gets better, whatever the case is, or maybe you just want to live off the grid and you just don't want the government to be butting in and you being connected to the grid. Whatever your reasoning is, I say all the power to you. Farmers have used windmills and water-generated power for a long, long time. This is nothing new. But the fact that now we have utility companies, look, it is a utility. It is an option for you to get a service. It is not a mandatory thing. You do not have to live with electricity if you do not choose to do so. It is not a mandatory thing. It is a provided service for you, an individual. And if you choose to buy into it, then all the power to you. If you choose not to buy into it, that's your prerogative as well. And the fact that a utility company wants to say, you know what, you're not buying as much as you used to, we're losing revenue because of that, even though you're not using their service as much, we're going to raise your rate. This story showed that an individual had a $600 bill on a regular basis because he had 5 people in the household. It was a very crowded place. $600. They did the calculations, and by putting up solar panels, it would drop it down to $85 a month. And the utility company didn't like that, ended up raising the rates, or they're trying to fight to raise the rates. And then what's the point of even doing it in the first place? 721-8255-72 on Talk. Let's take another phone call, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
My name's Paul.
Hey, good morning, Paul. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
Andy. Hey, perhaps a easy solution is leave Westar out of the loop. I mean, why do you even... my home is totally solar and wind powered. I'm not even hooked up to Westar, so they can't charge me anything. There's no need to be hooked up to Westar. It's anytime if a corporation is on Wall Street, don't buy anything from them. They're just going to screw us.
Well, and that's, I mean, if you want to go down that road like you do and say, you know what, I don't want any of their service whatsoever, not just to cut back on it, but to get rid of it completely, then that's definitely your prerogative to do so. And maybe the individuals that will get wind or solar panels or whatever they want to for their home, for their farm, for their lifestyle, then they say, I'm just going to cut them out completely, because if they're going to raise the rates on me when the whole point of me was cutting back from their services, then you know what? I'm going to leave it completely. And it really brings up an interesting point for if we want to go into the tax debate, for when we say that the rich need to pay their fair share, and the rich are pretty much going to say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm already paying 40% of my income or my business or whatever at a 40% rate. I'm out. I'm going to go to another country. That's the same mentality, whether we're talking about energy usage or we're talking about tax rates.
Well, and I'm definitely not rich. I'm living on a Social Security pension.
Sure.
And it's far cheaper to buy solar panels than it is to pay an electric bill.
Sure.
You don't need to be rich. I'm super poor. And I don't have Westar, and I have all the energy I need.
Sure. That's a great point, Paul. I appreciate that very much. You're absolutely right. It really brings it into light on the priorities that some individuals have of, we want to pay into the system, that we need to pay your fair share. Even though you try and cut the cost, you try and be a little more independent, self-efficient, and then we're still going to cut you back and we're going to raise your rates because you need to pay your fair share. Whether we're talking about electricity or we're talking about tax rates, when you have to pay more of your fair share, pretty soon people are going to be like, I'm done, I'm out, I'm not going to deal with it anymore. 720-255, let's go to line number 3. Good morning, what's your name?
Hey, it's Lee. How you doing?
I'm great, Lee. How are you, sir?
Doing super.
Good.
Hey, I just wanted to point out here in Kansas, of course, anything that seems anti-solar is powered by the coal, gas, and oil industry. They have done everything they can to stomp out solar power in Kansas, and they will keep doing so as long as they're in power.
Well, I can agree with you to some degree on that, very much so. Now, coming from the Kansas Corporation Commission, whether they're paid off by the oil and gas companies or whether they're not, I mean, as I've mentioned before, I'm all for alternative energies if they're efficient, and if people want to go on them, they should. And I'm not in any favor, as I've said, that we should be charging someone like that at a higher rate just to try and decentivize that. But I don't know if they have as much of a power grip on the state as we think, because, I mean, Governor Brownback did a fantastic job bringing wind energy here, and now that's 35 to 40% of our entire electricity in the state, isn't it?
Well, though, you remember how much of a fight he's had about that and how much there continues to be about it.
Sure.
I mean, they are a resistance to alternative energy. They are well-heeled and they are well dug in, and they have Kansas wrapped around their finger.
Very
so
interesting.
It's going to be a long time before Kansas actually gets anything more than a D+ in their rating on that.
Sure. Little by little, Lee, I appreciate that very much. I mean, just to look at it right now, so we still have 40 to 40% of our energy in the state by coal, 30 to 40%-ish come to wind, and 25% by nuclear, and then we have kind of natural gas, biomass, and petroleum, and all these other ways, including hydro and solar and wind and all that's all included in there. So we still have some ways to go. And again, I'm not against the coal or the oil or natural gas or any of that sort. We still need that, obviously, because it's the most efficient right now. But we do have opportunities, and if people want to go personally the other direction, then they have the opportunity to do so. Let's go to Rick with the news.
Boom! It's the humanity!
Ladies and gentlemen.
There we are. Rick, what's happening?
What's up with your funky bad self?
Boy, I tell you what, we bring up the utilities like we talked about yesterday with the solar, and the lines lighting up. People are really interested in this one.
Yeah, it's,
come on, you got to pay your fair share, right?
Exactly. And then some.
And then some.
Hey, good morning. Well, many of you may remember an old commercial on television, and it centered around this phrase, "Let go my ego."
Let go my ego.
Let go my ego.
Yeah.
Well, a story that we brought to you here on KQAM News yesterday morning was about a man that was, he went to a convenience store. He'd been shot. He called for help. Then he bailed, and the police followed a blood trail to a home. Right? You remember that one?
I remember trailing the deer. Yes.
Okay. Well, apparently that whole altercation started over an argument over food.
Yes!
Police say a man hospitalized in serious condition following a shooting Monday afternoon in South Wichita. They were called out about 2:45 Monday afternoon to the report of a shooting in the 1600 block of South Hydraulic near Harry. Police lieutenant says the victim showed up at a gas station to call for help. Police then followed the blood trail back to the home where the shooting occurred. The victim, a man in his 50s, he was shot in his arm and chest, hospitalized in serious condition. Police say a 49-year-old man is the person who allegedly shot the victim during an argument over food.
Twix, 2 for me, none for you.
Heston Police Chief Doug Schrader, I stand corrected, among 12 law enforcement officers from across the country honored with a Medal of Valor yesterday. President Donald Trump recognized Schrader and others in a ceremony yesterday at the White House. He was honored for his response to the report of an active shooter at the Excel Industries plant in Heston back in February of 15. Schrader entered the lawn equipment factory alone and shot and killed the gunman. Yes.
Hey, you know what? The good guy with the gun beats the bad guy with the gun.
Exactly.
There it is.
Exactly. Shenanigans involving someone and the Derby School District. A fake tweet went out last night saying there was going to be no school in Derby today.
Let me guess, a student.
Well, we don't yet know that.
Oh.
If I were to speculate...
No school today. Ha, ha, ha.
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what? I would much rather have them messing around on Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever, with stuff like this than the other things that have been going on recently. Anyway, the real superintendent of the Derby School District got wind of this, retweeted it, and said,
not the case.
Class in session.
I wonder,
today.
maybe they can narrow it down based on who doesn't show up today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, and then Derby police continuing their investigation after two men were found dead of apparent gunshot wounds Monday night at a home in the 600 block, of Tanglewood Court in Derby. Police say a 39-year-old man lived at the home. The other person who was discovered dead of a gunshot wound in that home was a 30-year-old acquaintance of the man from Wichita. Derby police, according to Cake TV, not speculating that there were any other outstanding people of interest in this case at this time. The police chief in Derby, Robert Lee, said there were no signs of forced entry into the home, and the men are believed to have died at some point over the weekend. No names yet released in that. And Wichita street crews working 12-hour shifts right now, getting ready for what could be wave number 2 of late winter activity in south central Kansas. A winter weather advisory in effect. That from 3 o'clock this afternoon until noon time tomorrow. Stay tuned. We'll keep you posted, and we'll be in bright and early tomorrow morning to get you up to date on any school closures, cancellations, or delays. That's the news.
There
I'm
it is.
out of here.
I guess that is kind of the season for the wintertime weather now, late February, right?
You know, in 2013, my first winter behind the news desk in Wichita, everybody was all excited about this thunder sleet that happened yesterday. And I remember one morning in February of 13, I was on my way to work, and we already had like 6 inches of snow on the ground, and then we had thunder snow that morning. Freaked me out, man.
That's what it
because,
is.
I mean, it was all white out, so every time the lightning was flashing, it was magnified by all the snow already on the ground. But we'll see what tonight brings. They're talking about freezing drizzle, possibly some freezing rain. They're not saying it's going to be enough to bring down any power lines or anything. At least that's what they're thinking. But it could make travel for tomorrow morning's commute and even late tonight a little bit dicey. Expecting things to roll in late afternoon today.
There it is. Rick with the news. Appreciate it.
And that's the news.
Got some more callers on the line. Let's go ahead and roll with this for a little bit longer, wrapping up hour number 2. Let's go to line number 4. Good morning. What's your name?
Wallace,
what's going on, sir?
Well, you scared me. So, I don't want to get charged more on my electric bill for keeping my lights off. So I threw the doors open and started pulling insulation out of the walls.
There you go.
Because I want to pay my fair share and yours.
Well, see, if you use more of it then you can pay your fair share by actually using it, because apparently we want to waste it. If we try and shorten it a little bit, then they'll just raise your rate so you're paying the same anyway. So I guess no matter what you do, you're going to have to pay more.
Here's what's really interesting is a number of years ago, I think about 8 years ago, this home that I bought had, original 1979 heat and air conditioning, and it believe it or not, it broke. So I looked around, and Westar Energy offered a 15-year interest-free loan, which, and I upgraded my air conditioner from like an 8-SEER to a 16-SEER.
Sure.
I upgraded my furnace, which was like 110,000 BTU furnace, and now I only require, I think it's 42,000 BTU because of how much more efficient it is. And I had some windows that were just single pane that the previous homeowner put in an addition. He put single pane glass in it, and I had double pane, and I got Westar to give me a 15-year interest-free loan to use less energy. Now they want to turn around and hammer someone for using less energy with solar panels.
Exactly. I don't get it. I get that they're a business. I get that they're a company that wants to make a profit, and I'm not against that in any way, shape, or form. You're providing a service, but we need to remember there's a difference between an all-for-profit and you have a market doing whatever you want to really being the monopoly of the only business in the industry and then setting rates whatever you want to and then worrying about people cutting it off when you're there for a utility. It's not a mandatory thing. It's not something that you have to get, and if people want to cut back on that product, they have that prerogative without you raising the rate on them to do so.
No, and that's exactly it. I mean, I thought we were all supposed to be, better stewards and cut down on energy use, which is supposed to save the planet. I mean, putting in these windows and putting in that heat and that AC, it lowered my bill significantly.
Absolutely.
I think it probably lowered me down 30-35% a month.
Absolutely. And that's what we need to do, not only for the environmental using the resources, but also just for the common sense of you and I actually wanting to be efficient and actually save some bucks. Wallace, I appreciate it very much. I'm way late on a break. I got to take one, but you're absolutely right. We need to do that just as you and I on a normal basis anyways, but now we're going to be punished after being guilted into going that direction. Now we're going to be guilted into not using what we need to be using according to them. I just don't understand it. Let's try and squeeze in one more phone call here, shall we? Oh, I guess we lost him. That's all right. Give me a call back. We want to hear from you. Wrapping up hour number 2. This is The Voice of Reason.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 2. When we come back, hour number 3, we're going to have Mike Suski on the line with us. He is a professional boxer. He was also a former bodyguard for President Donald Trump at the time, and look forward to chatting with him. That'll be a lot of fun. Kind of an interesting discussion that we'll have. We got about a minute left, but let's go ahead and wrap up this hour with another phone call. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. Sorry to bother you again.
Hey, good morning, Ron. What's going on?
I forgot to mention a while ago that on this bond issue, that's another unbudgeted item that the legislators are going to have to deal with, and out of sequence.
Sure.
And of the already all the money they're asking for now.
That's a great point. Now, do you think it's going to cut back on any of their financing from the state? Because, hey, you know what? You just got a $114 million bond? Probably not. It's a great point, Ron. I appreciate that. Let's squeeze in one more here. We got about a minute left. Good morning. What's your name? Oh, I guess we just lost him. Go ahead and give me a call back, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We'd love to hear from you. As we mentioned, coming up in hour number 3, Mike Suski. He is a comedian. He is a promotional and motivational speaker. And his latest memoir, Small Town Boxer, talking about the athletic side, what he needed to become a great boxer, also becoming a former bodyguard of Donald Trump. Kind of an interesting concept. He lost his he had some brain damage apparently during a fight way back when, lost his ability to speak, and now he's back at it and trying to spread his story, which is a really great one. So we'll talk with him coming up in hour number 3. Plus, we'll recap if you do want to touch base on, again, before the end of the show, the utility thing with the solar panels. It is great news. I love the fact that Maize School actually has wanting to put solar panels into their school, a private project from the science and physics department. Not funded by the school, not funded by taxpayer money, but doing it privately is a great idea. But then we're going to try and tax them on the back end because they need to pay their fair share. We're not going to cut any of their costs when it comes to utilities. It's a little sad, isn't it? Try and do something good, and then you get on the back end not so good news. Hour number 3, The Voice of Reason, coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
But what else can we do? You and I, the parents. I don't have a kid in school yet. She's 3. She will be going to school very, very soon. Am I going to have to be worried about taking her to school every single day? Am I going to have to be worried about someone wanting to harm her at an elementary school? And as we talk about legislation, as we talk about gun safety programs, as we talk about these things that the government can do to some degree, at the end of the day, it's you and I.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3. The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, along with KGPT TV. Welcome aboard. Good morning to you. It is a Wednesday. It is a Fight for Liberty Wednesday because, well, we just have to do that every day. Why not? Trying to get you pumped up, getting excited for the day. Let's carpe diem all over this place. We have to sweep it up with a mop once we're all done because we are going to come into today. We're going to take it by the horns and we are going to dominate on what's actually going to happen with your life and your career each and every day. Welcome into it. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. You can always shoot me a message all over social media on the Twitter at Hoosier Reason, the Facebook, facebook.com/1480KQAM, or facebook.com/Mid-America Reason. All over the place. We do have the Facebook live feed rolling as well. Like it, share it, and we appreciate you when you check that out as well, very much so. I'm excited to get our next guest on here. As you know, this is not just a political talk show. We talk politics a lot. We keep you updated on the political issues. We've talked about the votes and the school bond issues, and it's all important. But at the same time, and it reminds me of kind of the old show, if you remember Home Improvement, it's not just a home improvement show, it's a male improvement show. This show is not just a political talk show, but it's a making you a better person show, because we always need to work on that, right? If we're not growing, if we're not advancing, then we're staying the same, then we're actually falling behind, because there is no such thing as stagnation. It's not going to happen. So I want to talk a little bit about something a little bit different, but yet still kind of political at the same time, which is kind of fascinating. But he is our next guest. He is a boxer. He was the former bodyguard of Donald Trump. And he is the latest author of his memoir, Small Town Boxer. On the line with us, we have Mike Suski on the line. Mike, good morning, my friend.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I appreciate you coming on the show. Let's set the stage here as we try and talk about overcoming obstacles in life, which everybody does, as we talk about ways to advance ourselves or seeing the career or the light at the end of the tunnel, the goal that we set for ourselves. The stories that we hear from others encourage us to do so, and you've gone through a story that everybody I think needs to hear, especially with your memoir, Small Town Boxer. Before we get into the specifics, give us an overall little detail on a blurb of what this book's about and what you've gone through.
Okay, well, the book's just an accumulation of all my life stories. I've always ended up on top, I guess you could say. I've always been really fortunate and lucky. And I got beat up in eighth grade, junior high. I got beat up by a black belt in karate.
Ooh.
And I was a lot tougher than the kid. I was a big-time wrestler.
Sure.
And I could easily whoop the kid. I mean, I was way tougher than this kid, but for some reason I was going to strike it out with him and not take him down to the ground like I do everybody else.
Sure.
So I got a black eye, and a big black eye. And I was really embarrassed. I was a class tough guy, and I was football player of the year on my team, and all that. So I was a big tough guy jock, and that got me into boxing. So I started boxing in 1986. I had a lot of success early. By 1988, I was fighting the Olympic trials, nationals, semifinals. And I lost to the world champ, was 60-59.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then everything just took off. So,
sure.
And that put me on the U.S. because all them guys turned pro. They're a lot older than me. I was just barely 17.
Sure.
So all them guys turned pro, and then so that just left me at the top there. That got me on the U.S. boxing team, and a little bit after that, we had a big fight on ABC Wild Order Sports. We were fighting the Russians in '89. Russia was still a big deal. I had to make that team, and I made that team too. And we, went out to Spokane and Well, I got our butts whipped, but I still made the team.
Well, come on, that's an experience right there to fight. Especially, that reminds me right there of like Rocky 3, where you go, or Rocky 4, I guess, go up against the Russian and be able to. It can be. I mean, that's a big deal at that time, and that's an experience.
Check this out. So Evil Knievel is ringside, right? So I'm young. I'm a senior in high school, and all these guys, the Russians are all grown men, and they're drinking beer at the parties and that. I'm still in high school. So anyway, I fought a good fight. I won the first round, and the Russian got into me the last 2 rounds and definitely won the fight. So I was really embarrassed, and I was beelining it down the aisle to go back to the dressing room, and I was embarrassed, man. I just wanted to get out of there, and then Evil Knievel grabbed my arm, and he chased me down. And he grabbed my arm. And he goes, kid. He goes, you got heart, man. I ain't never seen so much heart in a fighter. If you keep this up, someday you'll whoop his ass. And then, and then fast forward into my pro career, I fought a Russian champ, and I did not. And I knocked him out.
Wow. That's fascinating. Now,
I'll never forget that.
Oh, that's that. I mean, that's a memory right there, and it shows the overcoming. There's so many. Now, look, I'm a millennial. I'm a younger individual, and I talk about millennials many times on the show because there are the really, really hard workers with that fight, with that passion, the scrappers that actually want to go and do something, and then there are those that want to hide on the campus, the college campuses, and live in their little safe space and be offended by everything, and it's very offensive to my generation. And sometimes we talk about the bullying, the online social bullying. We talk about being able to overcome those obstacles in life. And you could have gone 2 directions with your career. When you lost the first time against you could have said, you know what, this isn't for me. I can't do it anymore. And you could have bowed out and disappeared and never been seen again. Or you did what you could have done, and you did this one by overcoming it, coming back. And guess what? You're in your professional career, and you come back and you get to defeat a Russian, which right there kind of completes that chapter of your life.
Yeah, it was a big. It was at the Palace. And they announced it, one of the greatest fights ever at the Palace. Me and that Russian, we beat the crap out of each other. It was a tough fight, but at the end I stopped him. TKO'd him, and
wow,
yeah, that was a heck of a night, boy.
Absolutely. Talk about within your career, because you became one of the top 10 world-ranked boxers internationally, and it's fantastic what you've done and what you've overcome to do that. But at what point, what fight? Talk about when you actually accrued some brain damage during your career.
Oh yeah. It's if you think about it, we all do. I mean, every boxer. You're getting hit in the head. I mean, and so it's just a question of how much brain damage you incur. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that saved me was I had a family to fall back on, that could take care of me, because a lot of times, you're making all that money. I made a bunch of money. You're making all that money. It's coming in, and you think it's not going to end.
Sure.
And then the thing about boxing is once it ends, nothing comes in, you go from having everything to having nothing. It's crazy, it's a full-out run, and then it's just a complete stop.
Wow.
And that's hard to deal with. Most people can't, realize just how that your life is. You're on top of the world, man. I was on top of the world.
Sure.
And then just like that, I lost my first fight, and then I lost. So then I lost my first fight. I won my second fight coming from my loss, and then I lost again, and that was it for me. And and the thing about me was I had a very unique career. The first time I ever got in the ring was with Chris Bird, and he's an Olympian heavyweight world champ. And he had over 150 fights, and I never even seen a ring, and they put me in with him. And then he beat the hell out of me. And then
talk about baptism under fire.
I took my lumps. I mean, I took some serious lumps. Sparring. You get more brain damage sparring than you ever do in a fight, because you're sparring every day.
Sure.
And then by 20 years old, I was James Lights Out Tony's main sparring partner, who at the time was pound for pound the best fighter in the world. So I start boxing at 15. I'm on the U.S. boxing team in 3 years later. And then 2 years after that, I was the main sparring partner for the best fighter in the world. So, and like I said, the first time I ever got in the ring was with Chris Bird. So I've been needless. I took my lumps. Let's just say that for sure. Constantly took my lumps.
Talk about the training that goes into this. Just as a boxer, I've always been fascinated by boxing. I'm a huge boxing fan. I'm a huge MMA fan, and I enjoy both of those. Now I've kind of gone,
Me too.
I think, a little bit more towards the MMA lately. But talk about the training and the pain, the agony, and the hard work that actually goes into training for something like this to prepare for a fight.
No, it's insane. When I was on the U.S. team, Pat Nappy, he's the Hall of Fame boxing coach. He's like one of the biggest boxing coaches in history, Pat Nappy. And he'd make us drill the heavy bags. He had to stand in front of the heavy bag for 3 minutes straight and hit it as hard as you could. And then he had a coach in your face yelling at you to hit it harder the whole time. So, yeah, it was insane.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I started running. The run is big at the Olympic Center. You're out in Colorado at the Olympic Center. We're all top fighters, and the run is really competitive. So I started running track and cross country in high school, so I'd be the fastest runner.
Sure.
On the U.S. boxing team.
Well, you need it. I mean, you need your fast feet.
Yeah. Well, the run was so big. That's how competitive we were. At the end of camp, they were betting on me and Chris Bird were the fastest runners.
Wow.
And they were betting on who was going to win the last. There's a bunch of money. Hundreds of dollars were spent. They give you money when you're out there. You get money. They per diem money, and it's a bunch of money. I come home with a couple grand in my pocket after one of the fights.
Sure.
So, anyways, they have a lot of money. So they're betting hundreds of dollars on who was going to win the last round between me and Bird.
Wow, that's fun. I have to ask you before we shift gears just a little bit, but coming from me being, like I said, kind of an MMA fan. Did you think, I don't know if I'm sure you watched this, but the Floyd Mayweather-Conor McGregor fight, I am a huge not a Floyd Mayweather fan, I am a Conor McGregor fan. Do you think that he had a chance at all winning that fight against Floyd Mayweather?
Man, he did way better than I ever dreamed of.
Mm-hmm.
I was amazed at how well he did.
Sure. Coming from the MMA, and I know the stamina was the hardest part for him, but I was so devastated after that loss because I personally, I am not a fan in any way, shape, or form of Floyd Mayweather, and Conor McGregor's been my guy for years, and I was hoping that he would be the one to finally stop the Mayweather train.
No, come on, really? I thought within 6 rounds that Mayweather was going to knock him out.
Sure.
And then, you know what happened? Fighters make fights, right? Fighters make fights. So this, McGregor had good speed and he had them long arms and he knew how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
And he went away from Mayweather. Mayweather never walked anybody down. At lightweight, Mayweather was a monster. I'll give him that. At lightweight, Mayweather was a monster. He'd get in there and he'd get your butt. You know what I mean? He fought.
Sure.
But as he got heavier, he fought real smart. I mean, really smart. So that took McGregor backing up really threw a wrench in Mayweather's plan.
Sure.
McGregor, if you watch the fight, McGregor was fighting backing up. He had them long enough arms and good speed to be hitting Mayweather when he come at him.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the fight, if you watch it, Mayweather had his hands up, just walking McGregor down, and Mayweather's never done that.
Sure.
So that just totally took Mayweather out of his realm.
Well, at least it brought up a challenge a little bit, so that I guess I was happy about that fact. I do want to ask you, because being kind of a political talk show, I do have to ask you, being a former bodyguard of Donald Trump, what was that experience like, and what is the person Donald Trump like with you being around him for that short amount of time?
I loved him. He was a great guy. I mean, he's fun. It's funny, everybody that knows him on a personal level likes him.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody. And Trump, so he'd have these big parties at Mar-a-Lago, and I was his main bodyguard. I'd be on his persons, and he was really concerned about people having drinks. He's really concerned about, he's always asking people if they're having fun, go on drinks, and then, he had a wait staff, and, man, he was always ordering drinks for everybody. He was just a great guy, man, in my book. And
Sure.
he'd buy ringside tickets to my fight.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And I was an amateur then, so I was fighting main event fights down in South Florida, but still, I was an amateur, and he's buying ringside tickets to my fight.
Mm-hmm. Regardless of the politics of where he stands on some of the stuff, which I agree with mostly what he does, disagree with a little bit of it, but overall, does he deserve the flack that he's getting in the political world and from the media?
Come on, man. The economy's raging. There's more black men working now than in the history of America. Employment is off the charts. He's bringing all his money back in. It's amazing all the corporations, the corporate tax reduction, what it has done, and nobody's talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's bringing tens of thousands of jobs back to America, and because of the corporate tax, and nobody wants to say a damn word about it. It's incredible.
I agree completely, my friend. It's absurd to see the criticism that he gets just because he's not one of them, quote unquote, and they don't like that.
It's insane. The success that he is having is utterly insane. Could you imagine Obama having Obama had nothing but failure after failure, reduction in the workforce, increasing the. Obama said what Bush did with the debt, right? So Bush doubled or tripled the debt,
mm-hmm.
and Obama, because of the Iraqi wars and all that BS. So Obama said that was criminal, right? So Bush got the debt up to $10 billion or whatever it was, 10 to 12 billion, or about a little less than 10 billion.
Sure.
So then Obama gets in there and doubled what Bush did.
Oh yeah,
doubled the debt. The same debt he said that was criminal. He doubled, and then and nobody ever said a word about that.
Of course not. Of course not. It's Mike Suski. It's the memoir Small Town Boxer. Mike, God bless you, my friend. I'm so glad.
Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely, go for it.
They need to get the older vets. I guarantee you could get a litany of older vets that would get a gun and do security at the high school, the junior high, and elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
Because listen, the only kid that's going to take a gun to school is a coward.
Sure.
And the only thing that's going to stop that coward is another gun.
Absolutely.
A coward ain't going to take a gun to school. And just like that kid at the last shooting, he knew that they had armed security there, but there was one guy for this big school, and he knew where the armed security guard was on the other side of the school, and he knew that.
He played that smart.
Cowards don't face another gun, and we got these gun-free zones are a bunch of BS. They need to get rid of these gun-free zones because, like I said, cowards don't face another gun.
And you being a bodyguard would know something about that, because I guarantee you that with the person having bodyguards and having that threat around the person that they'd like to target, they're going to second guess when they're actually going to come after somebody, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. Almost all the mass shootings are in a gun-free zone.
Exactly.
Add it up. I mean, all you got to do is add it up.
There it is. Mike, we appreciate it very much, my friend. Good luck with the book. Small Town Boxer is the memoir. We love everything that you've done. Keep up the great work. We'd love to get you back on again soon.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it.
There it is.
Great.
Hey, appreciate it very much. Mike Suski right there, author of the memoir, Small Town Boxer. Great, encouraging story there, uplifting, and kind of some fun stuff with the inside look at the life of Donald Trump. Got to take a break, 25 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That was a fun one there. Mike Suski, appreciate him coming back on the show. His memoir, Small Town Boxer, you can check that out. Fun information and get to the inside scoop of President Donald Trump, the way he is, just the all-around good guy that everybody seems to hate. Funny how that works, isn't it? Bottom of the hour news coming up. We'll wrap up the show today. When we come back, we'll get your thoughts and calls. It's open lines to you for the rest of the show. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
keeping reason in the world of politics.
But if you're really angry, why in the first place are you not frustrated and angry to the fact that you have to spend $250 to $600 of your own cash to be able to provide resources in the classroom?
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Yeah, wrapping up the show today. Welcome back in. It is a Wednesday. It is the Fight for Liberty Wednesday because that's just the way we roll. 36 minutes past the hour. Welcome in here on the Big Talker, KQAM. 721-8255-721 Talk. Thanks again to Mike Suski for joining the show. I thought that was a great interview. And I tell you what, this is what we need. And maybe we need some more encouragement of that sort. Sometimes you need to refuel that tank of the go-getter. I try and do that for you every day to help as you're starting your day. Because I get it. It's early. It's tough in the morning. I got a job that I may not like. I got a project that I may not like. Think of it in the positive light. Let's get this done. Let's take it over. As you know me, I take something and I turn it up to notch 11. On a 1 through 10 scale, I take it and I crank it up to 11 because that's just the way I go. If I'm going to do something, I want to be the best at it. If I play sports, I want to be the fastest. I want to be the best. I want to be the biggest. If I talk politics, I want to be the smartest. I want to be the wittiest. I want to be the whatever, the most sarcastic. If I sing or if I listen to music, I want to play the most extreme, which is why I like my little more edgier metal. Because I want to take it to the next level. And that's the mentality that you have to have, I think at least, in life. Is that if you're going to do it, baby. Don't just muddle along and be just the mundane in the middle of the road, just go with the flow kind of thing. I mean, I'm a go with the flow kind of guy, but at the same time, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to jump into it head first to make sure it gets done right. That's just the kind of guy I am. That's the way I live my life. And the encouraging stories of the fact that, you know what, I was in middle school, the way he talked about, I got the black eye. I was a wrestler and I got beat up by a black belt karate guy. I needed to become a boxer. Okay, you know what? I got to have fast speed. I'm going to be the fastest in track. Okay, you know what? I got brain damage. I'm going to overcome that. He lost the ability to speech, and listen how he did in that interview. He can now talk. He can now function again. He's back at it. He was the bodyguard for Donald Trump. And that's the kind of mentality we have to have every single day. Let's get her done. Let's do it. Let's overcome. Let's beat them down. And that's why I enjoy politics so much, because I see politics as a never-ending uphill battle. Ideologically. To try and get the best tax rates, to try and get the less regulation, to try and get the government capped or contained or transparent, to try and do that. It's an uphill battle that never ends, because as soon as you think you won a battle, then the progressives and the other side come back and they do something tenfold and you have to fight it all over again. It's an uphill battle, and it's frustrating and it's exhausting, but at the same time, it's rewarding all at the same time. It's a very interesting feeling in politics. It's a very interesting feeling in life. You feel like you got it all figured out. You got your wife, you got your kid, you got your family. It's a happy, hunky-dory situation. Okay, now you throw financials into it. And then you throw the curveball of the heater or the car breaking down. And then you throw this and that and the other. And it's a fiasco. But you know what? When you find that person that you enjoy it with, then it doesn't matter, because you're enjoying it and you're going to overcome in the end. It's all about the accomplishment in life, no matter what you're talking about. And that's what we need to have sometimes, that encouragement. And that feel good. So I appreciate him coming on the show very much. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Let's go to the phones, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, this is Helen.
Good morning, Helen. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine.
Good.
And regarding this solar business,
yes.
Jesus says in St. Matthew 7:20, by their works you shall know them. Well, if our government really means what they say, which we know the majority of the time they don't, then if they want us to be energy efficient and cut back on stuff, then they will not go along with this, trying to punish people for doing what they encourage us to do.
You would think. Now, it is the utility companies like Westar that say, you know what, we're losing revenue, or maybe we want to lower costs for everybody else, so we're trying to do the redistribution thing and raise the rates for individuals who are not using as much as they used to. But again, going into a utility company industry that we know, they should know, everybody should know that you don't have to have that utility. It's not a mandatory thing that's governed to say, kind of like Obamacare now, where you must have insurance. You don't have to have it. You can go alternative. You can just cut it off, and it's there as a service to you, and then to make a little bit of revenue as well with it, to be able to stay and keep the business doors open. I get that. So,
right.
them requesting
it's a service to you if you want it.
Exactly. And while we're the fascinating part about this is that while we're going through a legal suit at the state level to try and cap the amount of profits that a utility company can have because of the major tax cuts from President Trump, while we're saying that we need to cap their profits, then we could turn around and say we're going to raise rates on individuals who have cut back on their usage so that way they can redistribute that wealth into the company to try and help out other individuals. I find it interesting that we're going to allow the raising of the rates for people wanting to become self-dependent, but then at the same time cap the profits of the utility company. We're talking out of both sides of our mouth here. It's fascinating to watch.
Exactly.
Helen, I appreciate it very much. Great points. I don't get it. I don't get something like that. Why we would allow that type of mentality when it comes to a utility. Look, if you don't want to, remember the story a while back, and I get it because it was a zoning issue, and that was the one problem there. But how many people would love to live off the grid? They have their own well, they have their windmill, they have their solar panel, they don't have any electricity coming in. They could just live off the grid. They don't have to pay for anything like that. Or maybe because they're afraid of the government. Whatever your reasoning is, I don't really care. But then saying, yeah, you know what, the little bit that you do use, you cut it back from 100% usage of the utilities and the electric bill to maybe 10%. Because you just need just a little bit more oomph. You didn't get quite enough solar panels or enough of the windmills or whatever. And we just need a little bit more, just that supplemental, just to tag on the end of it. And we dropped our utility bill down from $300 a month down to $20 a month. And now they're going to come back and say, well, that $20 a month actually needs about $80 because we need to raise your rates. So that way you're still paying a little bit because we're losing. But we're not using it as much. Doesn't matter. You need to pay more of that because we're losing out. And we need to help out other people. It's the redistribution. It's happening with taxes, and now it's happening with your public utilities. Doesn't make sense to me. Let's go back to the phone, shall we? Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
My name's Paul.
Hey, good morning, Paul. How's it going?
Good. Yeah, I spent about $1,600 to convert my 2-bedroom, 1-bath home. And disconnected Westar. That's pretty cheap, I think. Because before I disconnected Westar, I was paying about $300 a month in electricity bill.
All right, so $300 a month that you were paying, and now it costs you $1,600 to put those in, and now you don't have that bill at all. You are 100% just on solar.
Correct, sir. Correct.
Okay, so that would be really, let's see, $1,600. That would really be about 4 or 5 months, about 5 months ish, and you have it completely paid off compared to what you were doing with the $300 average for your utility bill.
Yeah, I don't get this 20-year return thing mentioned earlier. This seems like it's a no-brainer. I couldn't believe it costs so little to do that.
Sure.
Now,
Now, when did you do this?
Just one person.
Sure.
One person in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house.
Okay.
So
when did you do this? How long ago?
About a year ago.
About a year ago. Okay. The technology of it, because I know I'm not for the government imposing, making it mandatory that everybody do it and start punishing oil companies and natural gas companies and that in trying to do a forceful transition to these alternatives. But I love the idea of people doing it on their own. And as we do it more in the private sector, then the efficiency of the equipment is going to get better. The technology is going to get better. And then we can slowly transition naturally as opposed to a forceful by the government. So the technology of that, have you seen the improvements, or did you pay attention to it before you installed them and how much it's improved? How is that industry right now? Is it efficient for people to start looking at seriously?
It's getting a lot cheaper all the time. I learned about this back when I lived on a boat.
Sure.
And, when you're living on a boat at sea, why your power is right there. It was so easy, so simple. And the products are getting a lot better. The prices are coming down a lot.
Sure.
Now, I didn't like this tariff that was imposed on solar panels.
Mm-hmm.
I might look into starting to make my own solar panels. I don't know. And then there's thermal hot water, too, solar hot water. I haven't even done that yet.
Sure.
So,
there's so many opportunities.
It's really cheap. And look, I could sit here and whine about Westar or the government trying to make me do something or not do something.
But you did something about it.
It looked better to just take what you want to do in your own hands and do it for yourself.
There it is. The independence.
The rest, you know?
Exactly. The independence to a T. I appreciate that very much, Paul. I 100% agree with you there. And you're right. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with the tariffs on importing solar panels into the country either. But you know what that's going to do? It's going to create an opportunity for individuals to say, like you mentioned, hey, you know what? I'm going to start producing my own solar panels so we don't get that tariff. We can keep the prices low. And then guess what? It's going to allow the private sector to grow naturally in that sense as well. Look how many wind turbines are actually produced on the western part of the state near Garden City. The few years that I lived in Garden City, they had those windmills. They had the company there, and you could see the big towers, you could see the big blades, and they produce those and then ship them out all over the place. Right there is another industry that we could start diversifying with in the state of Kansas. I don't know. We have that opportunity. 721-8255. Let's go back to the phones here. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. It's Pam.
Well, good morning, Pam. How are you?
Oh, pretty good.
Good.
I was listening to that, Paul, and I would really love to know how he hooked a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house up for that kind of money. Because I have checked into all this solar and wind and stuff, and number one, no air conditioning. You will have no air conditioning unless you want to spend about $60,000 on a solar system.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Well, and it may be kind of on his kind of the bare minimums. And he had talked about the hot water that it would take to look at investing into hot water solar. So he may be on more of the primitive side of that because
it would have to be.
But if you do want the luxuries, the air conditioning and the hot water and everything else that goes along with it, then I'm sure it is a little bit more expensive. And that may be where we start seeing the 15-year payout on that to actually make it worth it. But again, technology is going to continue to get better. And if let me tell you, if the oil companies are smart, I'm not saying that we need to completely transition. I've never said that, and I've never been an advocate of that. We need oil. We need coal. We need natural gas. We need those things because right now they are still the most efficient at the most cost-effective for the general public, but that will change sometime, whether it's 20 years from now or whether it's 200 years from now. It will change at some point, and if the oil companies are smart, and they are many of them, they're the ones investing and trying to research for the new technology so they don't lose their business whenever that industry does die.
Well, here again, we are repeating the past. I'm old enough that I remember everybody's going to have solar and everybody's going to have alternative energy, and we're getting rid of all this. I specifically remember Jimmy Carter and his big, we're going to do all this because the government's going to make you. And so we had this big rigmarole and, you know, a new ice age if we didn't do this, blah, 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 rah, rah, rah. And
the scare tactics.
Yeah. And here we are, you know, 30, 40 years later, going through the same thing. And let me tell you, the prices on this stuff have not come down that much.
Sure.
And it was a lot easier back in the 70s and the 80s to find all the components to build your own.
Sure.
And to, you know, jerry-rig all this stuff to do what you wanted. And it wasn't as difficult to get around the electric company. And, you know, as far... where are all these environmental whack jobs when we need them?
Exactly.
That our government is going to make us do this, you know.
Well, and that's the thing. We got bullied into forcing many individuals to go down that road, and then we saw some of the benefit if you do live a little more primitive and say, okay, you know what, it's going to be cost effective. I want to do it, or we have the money to do it, and we want to save whatever the motive is, either to save money or to save the environment. I don't really care, but we've been bullied into going down that road, and now they're saying, okay, you know what, let's raise the rates for the little bit that you do use on the grid. So that way we can redistribute. It really shows and really explains the difference between a conservative mentality and a progressive mentality with the bullying of the government on both ends and how they want to be in control of it. Because whether it's the utility rate or whether it's the alternative energy, they want the government in your business telling you how to do it and when to do it. And that's why we're never going to see a productive conversation.
Well, and it's exactly what you were saying. They always talk out both sides of their mouth.
Sure.
You know, a great example, Al Gore.
Shocker, right? Shocker. Yeah, him trying to bully us on that one. Pam, I appreciate it very much. Thanks for the call. Let's take one more here before we go to a break. Good morning. What's your name?
Neil.
Hey, good morning, Neil. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
I just tuned in at the half-hour point, so
Sure.
I haven't heard the whole story. But there's a lot of tax incentives to install solar and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the wind power and things. Wind power is very, very expensive.
Sure.
The maintenance on those things are very high,
Mm-hmm.
and without the subsidies that the government provides, they would not be viable at this point.
Feasible at all.
Same
No.
thing with solar. If this guy that spent $1,600, that's probably because the government paid for most of it.
That is very true, and you're absolutely right. There are a lot of different tax incentives, rebates, different opportunities that you can, and that's good to some degree. Now, the state of Kansas, according to solarpowerrocks.com, we're graded overall as a grade F when it comes to solar, the solar report card for us, because we don't have the best tax incentives, tax credits, rebates, so on and so forth. But the concern is in where the story originated was the fact that the Kansas Corporation Commission is coming out after a request from Westar Energy to say that if you've gone solar power and you've gone from using the electricity to using solar power, maybe you're still using 10, 20% of your energy from Westar and from the utilities, that they want to raise the rates of those individuals because you need to be paying your fair share of the rates going into the company, and they want to raise those rates for individuals trying to be a little more independent. And to me, that's punishing individuals wanting to do something good either for the environment or for their own personal finances to try and be a little more independent, for them to say, you know what, now we're going to start punishing you and raising your rates higher than anybody else's.
Well, I tell you, if I don't mind that as long as it gets to back to the point where they have to pay back the subsidy that they got from the government in the first place.
Well, that's very true.
Once they've paid back their free money that they took from the government, meaning from you and me, then after they paid that back, then they got to go back to the regular rate.
And you know what? That's a whole other issue. And I'm glad you brought that up, because you're right. I am not a fan of the subsidies to get onto alternative energies. It needs to be natural from the private sector. And if somebody can't afford it, or if the market doesn't allow the cost effectiveness for the private sector, then the government doesn't need to be involved in it. If people want to do it on their own, all the power to them. That's how it's going to be the transition naturally in the private sector, the invisible hand from Adam Smith, the ability for the general public to be able to afford it. But right now with government subsidies, there's no point in the government giving you free money to do that just because we want to go down that road.
Exactly right.
Exactly. I appreciate it very much, my friend. Great points, great call. Let's go ahead and take a break. We'll try and squeeze in a couple more when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
There it is. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. All said and done. We're out of time. I can't believe it has gone by way too fast. A great conversation today. I love all the phone calls. I'm sorry we didn't get to everybody. I know we got a few more on the line. We just don't have time to get to you today. We'll continue this tomorrow. Call back, and we'll promise we'll try and squeeze everybody in there. We just ran out of time. We just had way too much fun with it. This is your show, as always. It's all about you, not me, but it's about you. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason. Everybody have a wonderful, great, fantastic, enthusiastic, and productive Wednesday.